One of my favorite early morning 4 a.m. Things to do is to look at the tape of the last city council meeting and the budget committee meeting and the justice committee meeting. So over that time frame, I've learned a lot about the inner workings of the city council. We've got a budget that's in excess of $1.7 billion. Those December 2023 financial statements, that snapshot for that year, they were issued in July of 2024. One of the hallmarks of the Republican Party, in my estimation, is that it is a party that is people-centered, and at the same time, one that advocates limited government intervention.
Frank Robert Janusa is a New Orleans certified public accountant running for mayor as a Republican, pitching himself as a reform-oriented financial expert, promising to fix the city's finances and revitalize infrastructure.
Running as a Republican, I have better access to the Republican federal government and the Republican state government. The city of New Orleans, as a legal entity, as a corporate being, issues financial statements. It's bloated. It's well overbloated. And there are things in there that need to be attended to.
What's up, Frank, man? How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Frank Robert Janusa, and I'm a candidate for mayor of the city of New Orleans. And I decided to become a candidate because I'm very concerned about the city. My roots go back in the city to the 1890s. I'm the third generation son of immigrants. These men and women, they laid the rails in the city, they dug the ditches, they drove the streetcars, they baked bread for hundreds of people, and they created a certain culture in New Orleans, and they survived through the Depression. As a matter of fact, they helped rebuild City Park with the WPA right after the Depression. So they've been involved in the city for years and years. And I've always had an interest in politics, sort of a interest that goes back to my childhood. When I was maybe 5 years old, my father would bring me to the voting poll, which happened to be next door to our home. Yes, next door, in a garage basement. Yes. And, you know, he would hold me up on his shoulder and he would suggest to me who he wanted me to vote for. And of course, this was, you know, I was born in 1951, so this is like 1956. We're talking about the Earl Long era, the Chet Morrison era. So this goes back a long time. So I've always had this interest in politics as it weaves itself with the history of New Orleans, because we are a fascinating city. We're a city that's over 300 years old.
Yeah.
We are a mecca for multiple cultures that come to this city. And those multiple cultures make this city so very special. And I think what courses through my veins is the grit and determination and the resilience of my ancestors, who I think helped build this city in the last 100 years. And sadly, the city has deteriorated to a degree. And I think that my institutional knowledge of this city and its history, I think I can do something that can change this city, propel it forward so that once again, it's the Queen City of the South. And that's my personal bent on this whole election, because I think I am truly a native-born son of this city. I've got the city blood coursing through my veins every day.
Yeah.
And when I wake up in the morning, I feel that there's got to be something better for everybody, prosperity for everybody. It can be done.
Yeah. And I guess to get a little bit more in depth of who is Frank, like you're son of a grandson of immigrants that came to New Orleans.
Yes.
What immigrants particularly?
They came from Sicily. They
Sicily,
were
okay.
Italian Americans.
And a lot of people don't really understand that New Orleans was a big port for immigrants. Like we know that like places like New York, okay, we brought a lot of them, but let's talk a little bit about the history of New Orleans, people coming to New Orleans for either refuge or a better life, and how they, like you said, build railroads, build streetcar lines, build things that we still use today.
Well, in the history of Sicily, there have been multiple famines over the years. And in the 1880s, 1890s, there was yet another famine in southern part of Italy and Sicily as a separate island. And that was one of the reasons that my ancestors came over here, because they needed, one, to find work to support themselves, and there was no agriculture to speak of because of the famines that took place. So they wound up in New Orleans. My grandfather was one of 8 siblings, and in the span of, if my memory is correct, 2.5 years, all 8 wound up here.
Wow.
And my grandfather, in his early 20s, became a streetcar conductor. And he actually drove the first electric-powered streetcar in New Orleans from what was called the Cream Cheese Barn, which is where Stallings Playground is now at Gentilly and Grand Route St. John.
What it was called? It was
the Cream Cheese Barn.
The Cream Cheese
Because
Barn.
there was a dairy next to it, next to the streetcar barn. And,
wow.
And prior to that, streetcars were drawn by horses and mules, a team of horses and mules, until electrification took place.
And he drove the first electric
The first streetcar.
That's crazy. And okay, so dope. So okay, you had people come here, hard work. They come here, they putting in a lot of hard work. How did those values transition into how you view not just politics, but just civic engagement in general? Like, what core values were developed from the work of your forefathers?
I'll give you an example. My grandfather's name was Frank Janusa. I'm named after him.
Okay.
He had no middle name, which was not uncommon.
Yeah.
And his desire in life was first education. And he did not have a classic grammar school education. He was basically self-educated. He came here at the age of 10. And as he grew up, he worked in the French Quarter. He worked with a number of Italian families who sold produce and vegetables, and they also were involved, as I mentioned, in working for the Sewage and Water Board and laying rails and streetcar work, things of that nature. But what was interesting is that he also recognized that as an immigrant to this city, he faced, and his family faced, multiple types of discrimination. For instance, in the early 1920s, one could purchase a reasonably nice house right out the French Quarter, maybe in the Marigny, maybe in Mid-City, for maybe $1,500. But when you're making $2 a week, it's tough to do, and the banks would not lend money to Italian immigrants.
Right.
So my grandfather, who had a very skilled mathematical mind, gathered a group of his friends together and suggested to them, you made $2 last week? I want you to put 10 cents into this account. He created an account, which became a small, loosely organized community bank.
Yeah.
And with that, and multiple families putting in these 10 cents a week and 25 cents a week. And
25 cents
yeah,
a week.
They generated enough money in, I believe it was 3 months. I'm not terribly sure about the time frame, but 3 or 4 months, they had generated $1,000 from quarters and nickels and dimes.
That's crazy.
So they utilized this fund to to loan money to an individual who wanted to buy a house in Mid-City. And that individual, of course, would repay that money, And as time went on, more nickels and dimes went in. So over time, they actually generated enough money to fund the purchases of 100 houses, roughly, in Mid-City, the Bywater, and the Marigny.
What? That's crazy.
The other thing that was of interest is that he had an ability to network with people because, number one, he was very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
He was also very tall. He was 6 feet, and I'm not. So the genetics stopped there. But he had a facility for mathematics and for people. He loved people, and he noticed that there were a number of places where young Italian boys and girls couldn't go. They couldn't associate there.
Yeah.
So he partnered with a group at the Italian Hall, which is right at Rampart and Esplanade, and he facilitated meetings and dances where young men and young women could meet and see each other, enjoy their company, meet their parents, and facilitate over time marriages and families.
Wow. Wow.
So he was quite a guy.
How it transitions into, I would say, what were the top 2 things that you took from him, and how you're going to apply, I would say, those values into your candidacy if you were to win mayor?
He knew how to approach people. He always talked with them on their level.
Yeah.
Even though he was tall, he never looked down on them. Okay? And he generated a real network of people who were able to go out into their community and do good work.
Yeah.
Faithful citizens, honest citizens, hard workers, good family members, good family people, building families. When you build a family, you build a city. Because it takes a village. We all know that.
Especially in New Orleans. And like I was saying off camera, one of the things that really intrigued me about you and your background is the institutional finance background.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard pretty much any candidate go into detail about city budgets. Like, what's the funds? How are we allocating? Because I think even from Mardi Gras, we get around $2 billion for those 2 weeks. We get around $2 billion. So let's talk a little bit about your institutional background and finance. I would definitely want to hear more about that.
Sure. When I finished high school at St. Aloysius High School in 1969, I was given the benefit of what was called the LSUNO Decennial Honor Award. Decennial meaning 10 years. LSUNO was created in 1959. So 10 years later, they offered those top graduates of public, private, and parochial schools in the area scholarships for either 1, 2, 3, or 4 years. I happen to have the benefit of a 3-year scholarship.
Hello.
And while my initial plans weren't business related, I was interested in psychology. And after my first semester at LSUNO, I decided that, the business world looks pretty intriguing, so let me move in that direction. And I had interesting nudges from people in my family. So I got into the business college, and by the grace of God, because I only had a 3-year scholarship, and I likely couldn't afford the 4th year, I was able to finish in 2.5 years, and I graduated with a pretty excellent GPA. Because that, again, was hard work. Yeah. It was determination and grit. So when I finished in May of 1972, 6 months prior to that, all of the accounting graduates were getting interviews with the Big 8 international firms. The Pete Marwicks then, the Haskins and Sells, the Arthur Andersons. Well, now they're the Big 3. But I had the opportunity to work with Haskins and Sells, one of the Big 8 back then, as a paid intern during my last semester of LSUNO. I had 6 hours left, and there were morning classes. So at noon, I could either hop on the bus or drive downtown to the foot of the river and get out on the 11th floor and work until 6, 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah, a couple more hours. Yeah, not too bad.
And I was very intrigued with the work. I mean, it was my chosen profession.
Right.
And I stayed there for 5 years, actually 5.5 years, and met wonderful people all over the city, uh, people of honor and integrity and goodwill, and was able to utilize those associations to start my own practice in 1977. And I've been a solo practitioner since then, primarily working in the area of income tax administration, income tax compliance, working with the IRS, and also handling business issues, couple mergers, some acquisitions.
Nice.
And always involved with the people who run the organizations and their supporting staff, which is very important. If you don't have a good supporting staff, then you can't get anything done with a client. So that's been my focus. Over the last several years, well, I would say in the last decade, one of my favorite early morning 4 a.m. Things to do is to look at the tape of the last city council meeting and the budget committee meeting and the justice committee meeting and the economic committee meetings. So over that time frame, I've learned a lot about the inner workings of the city council, and by definition, how they interact or don't interact with the office of the mayor. The interesting thing is, when it comes to the finance of the city, we've got a city of, and the number of the population differs, but somewhere between 360, 370,000 people. We've got a budget that's in excess of $1.7 billion. It's bloated. It's well over bloated. And there are things in there that need to be attended to. But most importantly, the city of New Orleans, as a legal entity, as a corporate being, issues financial statements. And the financial statements, for instance, the last ones that were published were the ones for 2023. And they were about 200 pages long. Good late night reading, trust me. But those December 2023 financial statements, that snapshot for that year, they were issued in July of 2024, 7 months later. Now, bringing that concept forward, we've got the 2024 financial statements that have still not yet been issued. And there was a committee of the council that invited the representative of the CPA firm that does the financial statements. They do the audit for the city. And this was like July 10th or 11th. And she indicated that the legislative auditor in Baton Rouge said that they could have another 90 days, which would take them into September, October. And she's only requested an interim 30-day extension, and they hope to have it completed by the 3rd or 4th week in August. So we don't have any idea of the financial condition of the city at the end of December 2024. We don't know how much bonded indebtedness it has. We don't know what it has in investments, how much cash it has. We don't know how much collected in sales taxes or occupational license taxes or fines or fees, or what we spent on the police department, or what we spent on the fire department, or what we spent on infrastructure, or what we spent on interest.
We don't even know.
We have no idea. Yet right now, they're working on the 2026 budget at the city council.
Without even saying what we spent on the 2024.
Exactly.
We need to talk about 2024 yet.
That's right.
What? So, and I would guess that's what led to your decision to run for mayor.
Absolutely.
It's just late night reads, looking at these budgets, like, how are they not even releasing the financial reports?
Yeah.
And I'm in the startup game. So, we do fundraising. We, like, the books are really the vital. It's the lifeblood of the company. So I look at our books every Monday and just go through them, balance, make sure everything good. The fact that not only do the council, but the citizens don't know what we're actually spending the money on. That's interesting. So let's segue a little bit into one of our first core issues, which I would say is one of the problems that you were just speaking is like education. Like, we don't even know what's going on. We don't know how to go look for the information. We don't know a lot of the basic things that I would say would keep any normal city running. What is your thoughts on the education system in New Orleans? I know we've been like a guinea pig for education systems, whether we're going charter, whether we're going non-charter, who owns what, where's the money going, what incentives do we have for bringing in kids? What is your thoughts on the current state of education in Louisiana? And if bad, what do you think can help kind of remedy that?
One of the things that I've read about recently is the graduation rate in the public high schools in New Orleans. And it's under 80%. It's either 78 or 79%. It's close there. It's come up a bit in the last decade because about 10 years ago it was more like 71%. So it's crept up fairly well. But 8 out of 10 kids finishing high school isn't good for the economy. It's not good for the workforce. It's not good for, really, it's not good for the family environment. You know, what happens to what happened to the other 20% that aren't finishing high school? Where is their focus in life? Is it work-related? Is it volunteerism? Or, God forbid, because they don't have access to good education, access to a good family environment, a good networking, they decide, well, maybe a life of crime is what I'm more familiar with now. And that's tragic because that will kill a city. It's killed the big cities in the United States. And, you know, while we've had a reduction in crime in New Orleans in the last 6-8 months, you know, it's still a source of concern for lots and lots of people.
Yeah, still one of the top crime cities in the country. And it has been good that we have been, you know, lessening on the crime. But yeah, it still isn't as impactful because we were so crime ridden, essentially. So when it comes to like the charter, are you for the charter system? Are you against it?
Charter system seems to be working fine. Okay. Seems to be working fine. What I would like to see is more of an engagement by the universities, Tulane, Loyola, UNO, and Dillard and Xavier, to become much more involved in the educational concept that's inside of the city. Those institutions could create an overarching ability of those schools to progress even further. Yeah. They could create an overarching environment where these young children become imbued from pre-K on, one, the importance of education, and two, how very important it is for themselves and their family, not just for the city, not to create a workforce, but to actually educate people, to make them free thinkers, to get them engaged in the community, to actually teach them about the history of the city, which I don't think is being done. Because if they were really invested in the history of the city, it's likely that they will want to improve it.
I agree with that. Yeah, so education is a big thing. And we aren't, I think we like number 50th in education or something like that as a state. So us getting more empowered educationally would be better. I haven't talked to any candidate that mentioned the fact that the universities haven't adjusted to our local education system. And that's a real good point to double click on, because you have these universities, and a lot of like great universities, but we're not adjusting to the education system that was created in New Orleans. So some of these universities need to kind of get more ingrained into the pipeline so that figure out how to support students, maybe different ways to even recruit students, considering how our education system is ran. So definitely like that thought. Haven't heard it from anybody else. And you actually answered the question, because I was going to transition into the university and school partnerships. And you literally jumped into that before I even got a chance to say it, because it's just so vital. Now, jumping to a different subject where we really think about economic development, because when you look at talent, the talent is a byproduct of your education system. And we say that New Orleans has a shortage of talent. Like, even with the companies that I've constructed, it's kind of hard for me to find talent that can work at a high level, understand the different processes that we have going on. And how do you think New Orleans can be better in not only building talent, but retaining it over time, because a lot of us leave New Orleans to go work elsewhere.
Two issues I think are important.
Mm.
Number one, there's a question of, is there a surplus of talent that can be tapped into right now?
Mm-hmm.
And that's an open question. But secondly, and maybe more importantly, is there a way that we can start creating talent that we can take advantage of in a useful and cooperative way 5, 6, 10 years from now, by developing talent in middle school and high school, where these children are exposed to STEM, exposed to the media, where they're exposed to the political environment, where they can actually learn from their experience, and therefore, as they mature and go through college or university, they can become the talent that we need 10 years from now.
Right, right.
You know, what I understand is happening currently, that a lot of our talent, current talent, is coming in from out of town. It's coming in from the post-Katrina in-migration that's taken place. And there have been some phenomenal people who've done that, and they're involved in tech research here. They're involved in the Idea Village. They're involved with the biomedical district, the bioinnovation
Doing some good work.
groups. So I think it's a twofold thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you need talent and you need it today, well, you've got to go where it is.
Yeah.
But if you're looking toward the future, to the near-term future, 10, 15 years, then you've got to grow that internally from your own city.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, that has a way to keep people in the city and make them productive and keep them productive.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And what about, I would say, like the hurricane stuff? So the hurricanes can be a big factor, as far as, like, even when Hurricane Katrina hit, like a lot of us, and you come up on the 20th anniversary, a lot of us left. And I know some of my parents' friends that didn't come back because they thought that it was just better economic opportunity. What's your thoughts on, you know, we can build up these systems, but if every 3 years we get a reset, like a hard reset of our population, how do we keep people coming back even in the face of disaster recovery? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a really good question. Unfortunately, we can't stop hurricanes.
At all, yeah, right.
But we can create a circumstance in the city, from both a New Orleans standpoint and a metro New Orleans standpoint, to get people back.
Mm-hmm.
One, by continuing to improve the educational system, by continuing to bring jobs here, and something that no one really talks about, we need manufacturing jobs in this city.
We do.
You know, not everybody can, you know, own 2 or 3 coffee shops and have, you know, 1,200 restaurants. Okay? You know, the city depends so much on tourism.
Yeah.
And of course, when the hurricanes hit, tourism just dries up.
Yep. Yep.
Particularly if you've got, you know, 6 feet of water, you know, in Broadmoor.
Nobody's
okay?
Right.
And the French Quarter's got, you know, a foot of water after Katrina. So you've got to have really a sense of style.
Mm-hmm.
Tell people, look, what we want to do is bring jobs back. We want you back in the city. We want your lifeblood back in the city so you can grow this city and make the city the Queen City of the South. That's one of the mantras I keep thinking in the back of my head, because it used to be back in the 40s and 50s. Yeah. We had the second largest port in the United States after New York, and now we're not.
And at one point, I think we was number 1, like when early on. Yeah.
Back in the 20s and 30s, before the Depression.
Yeah.
You know, when we were importing more bananas in here than we were selling, you know, corn and shipping steel out on the rails. But, you know, the idea about the hurricanes is interesting, because when Katrina came, we evacuated ultimately to Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
Which, you know, is the music city of the South.
Yeah, I love Nashville.
And as a musician, amateur musician, I can attest to how wonderful Nashville was from the music scene. But it was also an amazingly well-run city. There were no potholes.
Yeah.
There were no potholes. The people you'd meet on the street of whatever stripe and color, just as warm and delightful as the people are in New Orleans. And we're famous for our
Just the warmth. Yeah.
we're famous for our desire to be engaging with other people. And Nashville is just booming with industry, not just the music industry. They've got manufacturing, they've got the river right next to them. And I'm going to transition to a friend of mine who moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte, North Carolina is in the midst of this research triangle. Raleigh, North Carolina, Charlotte, and of course Atlanta makes a three-corner regional triangle filled with technological investment, filled with new STEM that's going on. North Carolina, as a rule, has a public school system that's second to none. They've got auto manufacturing plants coming up in North Carolina.
Wow. Yeah. And so I have one of my fraternity brothers lives in North Carolina. He tells me about just the economic opportunity. And to the Nashville point, I made a video, I think it was like 2 months ago, where I was saying essentially that New Orleans is the closest to being terraformed to a Nashville, from the perspective of we have a legacy music market. We have the water. It's a lot of things that are so similar to where it's like Nashville is like New Orleans done right, essentially. And there's a lot of things you can learn from them, just infrastructurally, culturally, about how to maintain and build about intellectual property, keep it home.
One of the things that I had mentioned on a forum that I was on a couple, 2-3 Sundays ago was that, for instance, New Orleans East. New Orleans East has lots of undeveloped land.
Yes.
And it also has something that few other cities have. The 3 R's. They've got the river, they've got the roads, they've got the railways. That is a powerful trinity.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yep. And that's assets. That's actual assets that could be leveraged to create more opportunity, to create more education pipelines too, because it's like, why are we learning about a lot of these things, especially with the ports being so big? It almost seems disconnected from a lot of our communities that we even have ports. Yeah. So to kind of transition a little bit into the infrastructure, you mentioned potholes. And this is like the one question I'm asking every candidate. New Orleans and the potholes. Now, you drive on Esplanade, it's like you're playing bumper cars. How do you think, what's your thoughts on the potholes? Why do we have them? If you were mayor, what would you do to get things patched up?
I'm going to tell you my pothole story. We moved into our home in July of 1973. We had just been married 7-8 months. And this was in an area of Lakeview called West Lakeview. It's between Pontchartrain Boulevard and the infamous 17th Street Canal, which put a little water in our houses 20 years ago.
Put a little water.
Back in 1973, street, which was an asphalt street, was relatively nice. A couple cracks here and there, but nothing out of the ordinary. And then around 1980, whether it was because of subsidence in the land or whether it was the materials, cracks started forming, creases started forming, dips started forming. But in the early 1990s, potholes actually started forming.
Yeah.
And around that time, I got aggravated. So every summer, particularly when it's nice and hot, I would, take a trip to either Home Depot or Lowe's and pack my old Jeep with about 600 pounds of Quikrete. And I would take that Quikrete, take my shovel, and take my bucket, and I've filled every pothole on that street every summer for multiple years, by hand. Then we got a notice in the mail that they were going to redevelop our street. And I live on 20th Street in West Lakeview, near West Harrison, between West Harrison and Veterans. And the note said, we're going to redevelop your street, and we're going to start next week. Well, they were a little off on their timing. It took about 2 months. They started in the middle of February 2020. They, put the barricades out. They started making some trench work. And then COVID-19 hit.
Wow.
So what was going to take maybe 3 months to complete from start to finish, because the street's only 600 feet long, okay? It took them until the summer of 2023 to finish it.
That's wild.
But it's finished, and I haven't had to fill any new potholes.
You retired your shovel.
I retired my shovel. Although I did call the Sewage and Water Board. There's something percolating from the ground up right now in front of our house, and I'm waiting for the emergency crew to call me again.
Keep waiting, because it'll probably be a couple months. Wow. And that's really interesting. I was laughing at, it was one of the social media pages they posted when they would put like a cone in the middle of the street.
Right.
And it's to try to like, so you going out, getting the actual concrete and filling out the potholes is a New Orleans story that I've never heard before.
A video on my website or on my Facebook page shows me doing just that.
You got to send us that clip. I would have put that clip in. And it speaks more to the, roll up your sleeves and get things done yourself. Because sometimes you can't really wait on the city to come, and that just is a testament to like, okay, you're running for mayor. You want to sit in this high seat, but you're not above rolling up your sleeves and getting the shovel and going and,
Matter of fact, the classic photo, it's a picture of me kneeling down on the street, got my shovel in my hand, and that's when they had the signs all over the city, fix my streets.
And you with the picture.
And the video clips, one of my sons asked me, well, sir, what are you doing with that shovel in your hand? And I said something like, well, I saw this sign and I thought I would do just that. Fix
the actual streets. That's good, man. And we need more of that, just letting people know, like, you can take matters into your own hands. Like, if something's broke, if you can go to Home Depot and get it a little better, then, go do that. So to kind of shift gears a little bit, New Orleans, a lot of environmental problems, from the receding coastline to, the hurricane prevention. What is your thoughts on climate and how, through your mayoral term, you would help New Orleans become a more climate efficient, whether it's through technology or whether it's through reinforcing different, what's the word I'm looking for? Different systems that can help us not just have disaster, not just preventative situations, but more so where we can thrive and be on the forefront of climate change and climate innovation.
Well, one thing we have, fortunately, is a resilient flood wall system, which protects the city substantially and other areas. To the extent that climate change is a factor, there's not much we can do about changing climate. But our approach to what climate change can do is how we have to formulate a response. And we can either be proactive with regard to climate change, or we can be reactive.
Yeah.
To the extent that we can be proactive, running as a Republican, presumably I have better access to the Republican federal government and the Republican state government. And to the extent that funds would be needed to stop coastal erosion, I might be in a better position to elicit those funds from Baton Rouge and from DC. We've got to maintain our emergency preparedness system with GOSEP. They've got to be engaged, and they're doing a good job. But the concept of climate change and our subsidence, those are some things that we may not be able to fix in the near term, because, they say we're losing a football field of land every day. So that's a real broad concept that's going to take a lot of work from a lot of people, which means it takes collaboration between the city and Baton Rouge.
Universities and like everybody coming together to tackle these problems. And that's a realistic approach to it too, like being able to get more funds And I kind of want to shift gears a little bit to your actual political affiliation, because a lot of people we've interviewed, you know, Democrat. We did one independent with Ricky Twiggs. I don't know if you're familiar with Ricky.
Yes, yes.
But double click on that a little bit. You know, New Orleans being or Louisiana being a predominantly red state, and us transitioning into advocacy, because that's the kind of the last point we want to get into, is how do you feel like you can be in a better position to advocate for the needs of New Orleans in Baton Rouge?
One of the hallmarks of the Republican Party, in my estimation, is that it is a party that is people-centered, and at the same time, one that advocates limited government intervention into the lives of people. For decades, sadly, the city of New Orleans, whether it's with regard to the office of the mayor or the city council, they are overwhelmingly too involved in the lives of the everyday citizens. There's way too much regulation, way too much taxation, way too much intervention, for want of a better word. So the mantra that I have is limited government. As a Republican, that issue rings well with Governor Jeff Landry and with the Trump administration. As we can see from everyday news, they want to get government out of people's lives. And that's the approach that I would want to continue to do.
Yeah, definitely. And that's an interesting approach, because it's so much going on in New Orleans where, you know, different approaches just at least need to be talked about, because we've been doing the same thing for my whole life, actually. Like, for the betterment of my 32 years. Today's my birthday, by the way. You know, but yeah, we just expounding on different thought paths and just figuring out what solutions. I feel like New Orleans can do better of just not all of the constant bickering and fighting between different political parties. Like, you would have the council and the mayor's office and that's not really parties, but more so position or seats. Yeah. And it's like New Orleans we have a diverse set of citizens, and we all need to be taken account of on both sides of, like, what's the issues? Well, okay, what's the issues we facing in Lakeview and Audubon? Okay, what's the issues we facing in the East and Lower Nine? How do we come together and solve these problems together? Because we have a lot of the same issues on different sides of the city. Like, we're all New Orleanians at the end of the day. Right. Yeah. So when it comes to advocacy, there are a lot of groups, you know, that want to be heard. So what are some things that you would do to ensure that all groups are pretty much heard when it comes to how policy is legislated, or how, you know, how potholes, or what potholes get fixed at?
We need to focus on the 2 C's. We need to focus on collaboration and companionship, not chaos.
Not chaos.
And that's what's happening. The neighborhood associations, well-intentioned as they are silos for their own parochial interests. And you've got multiple numbers of them in the city. Matter of fact, I hope to be speaking in front of several of them in the next 8-9 weeks. They need to collaborate more, and that may need to have the office of the mayor and the city council actually bring them together to perhaps do something totally different. Walk the streets of the city.
Simple.
Understand why Lakeview, which is a large contributor to the real estate tax base of the city, has some of the worst streets. Why the Rampart Street streetcar stops where it does and can't go down to Araby. Because it's entirely possible that could happen. You've got transportation problems in the city with the bus system and the streetcars on occasion. They've had parts of St. Charles Avenue blocked off with streetcar repairs
for a long time.
And the neighborhood groups need to coordinate and collaborate with each other and stop being silos. Now, is that a pipe dream? No.
It's not, yeah, it's doing.
Because the city council could actually do something other than meet on Thursdays. They could have a meeting of the neighborhood groups, come to the city council, spend an entire day talking about the issues that each one needs, how each group could actually help each other.
Yeah. So to kind of double click on the city council too, and not just city council, but the mayor, what are some, I wouldn't say critiques, but just being the guy that you are, doing the due diligence, actual research over the years, what are some of the things that you have as far as this opinion based on how they're running, and what are some things you would do differently, even though you're not a city council, but just to make things more cohesive?
I discuss in my platform what I feel is the overreaching of the mayor's office into the city council's bailiwick.
Yeah.
The mayor is trying to generate mayoral activity into the city council, and the city council is attempting to throw council matters into the office of the mayor. This is a circumstance where each one needs to stand in its own silo.
Yeah.
Because the office of the mayor is the executive branch of the city government. The city council is the legislative branch.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a case in point, and this has been going on for decades. When people complain about a problem in the city, bad streets, potholes, street signs that are down, street lights that don't work, they should call the office of the mayor, because the mayor oversees the Department of Public Works. Obviously, that hasn't happened in decades, so they've always gone to the city councilman. And, complain to whichever council person it is, this isn't working, this is broke, this hasn't been fixed, where's the sewage and water board? So that generates a power base in the city council to do work that the mayor's office through the Department of Public Works should be doing. Yeah.
Wow. That, makes sense. And it comes back to the education thing, because it's like certain things we should just know based off the schooling, and just people letting us know how things actually work. Now, I do want to talk about the fact that a lot of candidates, where there's a lot of forums that's been going on. I think they had like 3 this week or something like that. And I've seen that a lot of candidates aren't even invited to speak.
One of my pet peeves.
Right. What's your thoughts on that? Why do you think everybody not getting the same platform in New Orleans?
Well, it's unfortunate, because being a student of the politics of this city, since I was a kid, as I mentioned before, sadly, it's always been a popularity contest.
Yeah.
Okay? Who was the quarterback at high school? Who was the jock? Who's the baseball great? Who's the prom queen? Who's the prom king? Whose daddy was mayor? Whether it was one political dynasty or the other, it's a popularity contest. And the media, the media in New Orleans is not C-SPAN, trust me, okay? The media in New Orleans is desirous of putting their best foot forward and doing it at the cheapest way possible. That's why, sadly, they only seem to feature the purportedly top 4 candidates who are running poll-wise. And the other 8 candidates get iced out. It's unfortunate. And if you go around the city just at random, go to the grocery store, go to the post office, go to church after Mass, ask anybody, name 6 people running for mayor. And they'll give you maybe 2 names. Some will give you the names of the top 4.
Some. Small, yeah.
Nobody knows the other 8.
Yeah.
So we've got our campaign has a focus on exactly that problem. And that's going to be announced pretty soon.
Nice. Yeah. Looking forward to that announcement too, because we were planning initially to do a bigger speak out or debate with all candidates. And when so many candidates joined the race and we felt like we couldn't platform everyone, we decided to wait until the runoff to do something like that, because we felt like, just as a media company, we're not going to disproportionately represent everyone on the actual ballot. We have to give everybody a chance to kind of speak their own mind.
And if you've got the debate for the runoff, I'll gladly accept that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate it. So, and that's kind of, I guess, what we could wrap up at, man. Like, we talked about the education, we talked about the advocacy, a little bit of infrastructure. Is there anything about your platform in particular that you would want people to leave with?
Having a facility for math and the city budget and the city finances, I've come up with a couple of different ideas that will generate prosperity for the citizens themselves. For instance, one of the big news items in the last really couple months has been the Wisner Trust.
Yeah.
And of course, the Wisner Trust, goes back to 1914 when Wisner passed away. He left his property in trust with different income beneficiaries, including the city and including some of his heirs. And ultimately, after 100 years, that trust would terminate and the city of New Orleans would own the Wisner Trust assets. And it's still tied up in court right now. And back in 2014, when the trust technically terminated, the office of the mayor decided that it was within her purview to extend the trust. And that has been the source of much debate and much litigation, which is still going on. And this trust generates, and the numbers are not technically public, but from what I've gleaned looking at different documents, it generates for the entire trust some $7 to $10 million a year. Wow. And when it generates $10 million a year, the city of New Orleans has a 34.8% interest in it. Call it 35%. So the city collects about we used to collect about $3 million a year when the oil and gas revenues from these 35 to 38,000 acres of land south of New Orleans in Lafourche Parish, Jefferson Parish, and St. John the Baptist Parish, they produce oil and gas royalties every day.
Yeah, $3 million a year just off that?
Well, $10 million to the whole trust.
Wow.
$3 million for the city's share. And the mayor, as one of the trustees of that trust, takes the city's interest in that revenue and directs it to charitable organizations of her choice.
Wow.
And not to the general fund. So, this particular asset, once it becomes owned 100% by the city, one of my plans is to get the assets of that trust appraised. And some people say it's worth between $70 million and $150 million. Yeah. Let's call it $100 million. I mean, that's real money. That's real money. Okay? I want to take those assets. I want to create an initial public offering for those assets, put it inside an entity that the individual citizens in Orleans Parish can purchase an interest in. Okay? So let's say, hypothetically, you had somebody who had an extra $1,000 that they wanted to put into this initial public offering, this oil, gas rich compound, 38
guaranteed returns,
40,000 acres. Imagine putting up $1,000 and getting an 8, 9, 10% rate of return on your money for the foreseeable future. Somebody with $10,000 getting $800, $900 a year. That'll help them pay their property taxes.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, when the city sells that, the city is going to collect $100 million from the sale. What can the city do with $100 million? It can pay off the 90 million plus of judgments over the next 2 or 3 years, or they can pay off general obligation bonds or revenue obligation bonds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they can reduce the real estate taxes that people pay.
$100 million, you can do a lot with $100 million.
That's real money. That's real money.
You can do a lot with it. And it's also ironic that a lot of, we talked to a lot of candidates, and I haven't heard anyone mention that. Anyone.
You know why? Because it's a little paragraph inside the city's financial statements. That's why.
Probably didn't even read it. Probably, but not.
And there are other things just like that in the city.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess in closing, where can people reach you? Where can we learn about your platform? Give our audience a path to learning more about the Frank campaign and how you plan to impact the city in a positive way.
Well, first of all, you can go to my website, which is Janusa for Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the Facebook page, Frank Robert Janusa, the mayoral campaign page. You can, on either of those two sites, have all the information you need to click on to donate to the campaign, to subscribe to the campaign, to be able to view postings that are going on there, to help volunteer in the campaign. It's all there. It's all electronic. It's all electronic. It's all electronic.